All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you all had a great weekend. For today's video, we're going to run through the weekly watch list and the top watches that I'm looking at for the week ahead. So let's jump right into it. First things first, let's take a look at the economic calendar for the week ahead. All right. So for the most part, nothing major on Monday and Tuesday, but we do have CPI and PPI coming out on Wednesday and Thursday. So that is definitely going to be the main data that we want to take a look at, right, and be patient, in the beginning of the week in anticipation of what this data will come out and say. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday should be pretty actionable days. We should see a little bit of volatility, definitely some momentum. So those 2 days are really the main ones that we want to pay attention to and focus on. So Monday, Tuesday, right? Nothing scheduled, so we want to keep things light. We'll see if we got any sort of momentum. I do think we can set up for some upside to kind of start the week off, and then depending on CPI and PPI, right, we can see either a pullback or another significant run. So yeah, keep an eye on CPI and PPI for the week ahead. Let's jump right into it in terms of the setups. So the first one I'm looking at is AMD here on the daily. Now, AMD last week really struggled to see any sort of a higher high through 112, right? 112 is kind of the main level I want to see it get through. I want to see the buyers step up there. We did test it, right, at the beginning of the week on Tuesday, and actually Wednesday we had an inside day, but ended up gapping down, and Friday had a pretty weak close where we pushed up into 110, failed there, and closed at 106. So pretty simple. If AMD fails at 105, then I do like it for puts, targeting the 102.50 to 102 support range, and then potentially 100 there again. So AMD definitely kind of the favorite for downside early on in the week if we do see weakness with the overall market. Under 105 is what I'm looking at for puts. Now for calls, again, 112, a break of 112 should trigger this move higher towards 113.25 and then 115. Okay, so yeah, definitely do like that for the downside. Microsoft this week, definitely a name that I'm looking at for upside early on in the week. Okay, I really do like the price action that Microsoft has had the last few weeks. Granted, it has been fairly slow. We haven't really seen a whole lot of momentum, but price has been developing and basing above 326.50. Okay, that is kind of the main level there that I wanted to see the bulls hold, and so far we are holding. We're back above this 21-day EMA, and usually when we're above 21, I tend to focus more on calls and whatnot. I don't really use the moving averages too often, but seeing where price is, if it's above the 21, right, definitely in a bull trend, as we saw from March all the way up until we recently broke it back in July. But now we're back above and we're holding 326.50. So for this week, ultimately, as long as this can hold, 333 to 330, definitely going to be bullish on it. I like calls on it early on in the week above 335, looking for a push through 336 and mainly up into 340. 340 is the main target for me this week. And I do think if we can get back through 335 and make that higher high on the daily, we can see 340. Okay, for puts, can work back on a 326.50. So keep an eye on that, but for the plan, I'm more so focused on calls with this name. The next one is Tesla with this inside week. Okay, so Tesla here, it's definitely been struggling. We did hold that key back test of about 209, 210 there, held the higher low. This was back in August. So look at the daily, right? We ended up pulling back near 240, held, holding some higher lows here, and we were in a really tight daily consolidation. So with Tesla, I do like calls back through 255 for a push back up to 260, but 260 ultimately is the main level we want to see the bulls reclaim and hold. And if we do, we should be able to set up for ultimately 270. We don't have much resistance in the range of 260 to 270, so I do think we can see potentially 10 points through 260. Now for puts, I'm looking at 243. Okay, if we break under 243 here, I do think this goes lower back into 240, potentially back into the 235, 230 range. So we'll see what this one does. It's still consolidating really, really nicely, again, inside a week. Looking at the weekly, though, in terms of price action, we do have these long wicks up at that 260 range, so definitely going to be one of the main levels we want to see the bulls reclaim. Oh, so we can trigger another pullback. Okay. Alrighty, so Apple, definitely a volatile week last week with this name from Wednesday to Thursday to Friday, and broke down from 190, pulled all the way back down into this 173, 172 support range where we did find buyers, right? Ended up bouncing, tested 180 there and printed a pretty weak candle on the daily. Now, it's all about 177, okay? If the bulls hold 177, then I like this for a bounce play, mainly targeting 180 again to potentially 181.50 to 182. If it fails at 177 though, then I do think it sets up for another test of 175 to 174. Okay, Apple is a tricky name to short. All right, there really has to be news on this name. Um, or a major correction within the market, right, or even off of earnings, right, a major catalyst there to really take puts on this name. Apple is one of the harder names to short, and with the gap down, I do think we can see some buyer support early on in the week in this range of 176 to 177. Okay, so if we hold 177, then I definitely do want to be looking for calls as a bounce play. But if it ends up failing 177, then puts will be in place. So the main thing with this one is, look to see how price action is developing. For me to take puts, I need to see an above average sell volume, right, on the 15-minute or the 5-minute, for me to really be looking to kind of play puts on this name, right? Even on the gap down, we held that key support range and pretty much based around 170 all of Thursday. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, even pre-market from Thursday to Friday, we tested 177 again, pretty much exactly, and ended up gapping up and holding that level for the whole trading day. All right, so 177 is key. So be patient with it. Watch how price action is for puts again. I need to see that above average selling volume. You need to see momentum, need to see market weakness or any sort of bearish catalyst. And if we don't get that, I do think Apple holds 177. That is a major support range for this name. Alrighty, so Google here. Google, I really like the look of calls on this name over 136.80. If we take a look at the weekly, I know I got plenty of levels here. But with Google, we do have an inside week on this name as well. And it was able to base above 132 to 133 for the whole week. We did see one break of it, right? But then a quick reclaim actually gapped down there on Thursday. And then Thursday and Friday had a really strong bounce, right? Decent volume there on Friday as well. So with this name, I'm looking at calls over 136.80 early on in the week. Now we are gapping up slightly after hours. Tested 136.80 there. Couldn't quite get through. So we'll see what this one is trading at early on in the week. But if we get any sort of support from the market, I do like Google long over 136.80. Now, I don't really plan on taking this short, but under 132, we can start looking for puts again. But definitely some buyers there. We saw there on Thursday. The slight little gap down got close to 132. Buyers came up and end up pushing back up into that 136.80 mark. So keep an eye on 136.80. That is the main level I'm focusing on. All right, only a few more names here. Coin. So Coin has been in this descending channel for a couple months here, and we're just starting to break out. So we had this move back on Tuesday, August 29th, where we had this major breakout on volume, and we couldn't really find follow through. Okay. And last week, right, I was gone last week, but with the plans, I was saying, let's look to see how price reacts if we pull back into 76 and 78. As long as we hold that back test, ultimately I'm bullish on coin. Now, looking at the volume here, we do have descending, right, volume to the sell side. And as we come back into the support zone, notice how the volume starts to pick up. We tend to see a little bit more buyers. And this is ultimately just a back test of this higher high on the daily, which was right over 78. Okay, so we're getting that back test, right? We're finding some buyers here at 76 and 78. And then on Thursday, we did have a bullish engulfing candle. So really what this is kind of back testing that previous resistance. It's breaking out of this, month-long downtrend. So I definitely do like this for more upside. The main level I'm looking at is 82. Now it closed at 82.09. So, we'll see where this is trading at tomorrow. But if we can get a move through 82, I definitely do like calls. If it starts red and then goes from red to green, that'll be a solid entry for calls for a push, mainly targeting 85. The next level I would look at ultimately is that pre-market high from Friday, which is 83.22. If it gets through 83.22, definitely do like calls for a push. Okay, the only way I'd look at puts is if it does end up breaking back under 76. Alrighty, so CAT here is the next name. Now, CAT still very bullish on it, right? It's been holding that low following earnings, which is around 270. Very strong base there for a few days. Ended up rallying all the way back up into 290 before we saw some sellers. But overall, CAT's still holding very well. Right? It's not giving up that 280 support. So for me, if this gets back through 285, I'm long. I'm bullish on this name for a push back up into 290, potentially even 300. I do think CAT sees 300 before year's end. And again, that's only 18 points away from what we're currently trading at. Take a look at the weekly here, right? Got close to making that higher high last week, couldn't quite get through. So we do need to see it back through 285 to 290 here in the coming weeks for that push up into 300. But a really strong hold of 270. So not really looking for puts unless we break back under 270. And I'm mainly targeting around 263 there. Okay. All right, so yeah, definitely do like CAT, definitely like the basing at 280, right? Notice how every little break of 280, buyers are coming up, snatching shares and pushing it right back higher. So keep an eye on 285 for that move to the upside. All right, now let's take a look at SPY and QQQ here and we can wrap things up. So looking at SPY here, get rid of that. All right, so with SPY, we saw a bounce, right, starting in August 18th, so about a month ago. We saw a bounce around 433 as the lows, and then we ended up hitting this high of about 453, 454 before we saw a correction. And really, that's exactly what I was looking at for next week. Again, I was gone last week. I was on vacation. But ultimately, I was looking for a pullback with the overall market to back test 444 and hold 444. Okay, 444 is a key level. All right. We had this high back in June, 444. Once we broke through, we ended up seeing around 460 there. Once we broke 444 after multiple days of consolidation, we ended up seeing a move all the way into 433. So about 11-point breakdown there from 444. So we keep seeing these aggressive moves at this level of 444, and this is the key level for the bulls to hold this week. As long as 444 holds, as long as the bulls hold 444, I'm bullish. Right, very simple. I'm not going to be looking at puts unless a name has a bearish catalyst and relative weakness and above average volume, like I mentioned earlier. Right, as long as SPY holds 444, that's the only way I'll take puts is on an individual name with a bearish catalyst, relative weakness, etc. Okay, as long as 444 holds, I'm focusing on calls. All right. Right. Friday, we did start with a little bit of a gap up, or basically opened up flat, pushed, up into 447 and then saw some sellers. So really choppy day there on Thursday and Friday as we kind of try and defend 444. All right. So the best case is we pull back into 444, test it tomorrow. Let's say we start with a gap down. We gap down to 444. We hold 444. I'm bullish. Okay. If we fail at 444, right? I want to see multiple tests of 444, right? That fail, where the buyers fail to reclaim it, then I'll look for puts, mainly targeting 440 there. Okay, but for the start of the week, before CPI and PPI, I'm leaning more bullish in the overall market. Obviously, that can change, right? You never want to hold on to a bias. You never want to marry a bias. But with the price action at 444, I do think we do see a little bit of a bounce, right? Especially going from, basically 454 down to 444 in about 5 days, 4 days. I do think we start to see a little bit of short covering and a bounce off of this level. Okay. Now, if we fail 444, definitely puts will be in play. But 444 is definitely a line in the sand there. QQQ here. Same kind of thing, back testing 372 to 370, and as long as QQQ holds 370 and 372, I'm bullish. So treat 370, 372 on QQQ as 444 on SPY. same approach. As long as we hold that 2-point range, I'm bullish. Once we fail at 370, then we can start looking at puts again. But until that level breaks, I don't really have any interest in being aggressive to the short side, right? If we fail at 370, then I do think we can see another pullback, maybe 5-point pullback, 6-point pullback before more buyers step up. All right. Looking at the weekly, we do have an inside week. So again, for a larger move to happen, we do want to see it through 380 and ultimately that recent high of about 388. If we get through 388, I mean all-time highs are coming. All right. So definitely leaning more bullish to start the week off. Let's see what CPI and PPI say and what kind of data we get from that, and then we'll have a different approach once that data comes out. But at the start of the week, definitely leaning a little bit more bullish. I do like a lot of the setups to the upside early on in the week. There's a few short names that I'm looking at, like AMD, potentially Apple. But for the most part, a lot of names are setting up for some upside, right? Name I didn't cover was Amazon. I got plenty of alerts for 140. Once Amazon gets through 140, I do think this can see the recent high of 143 to 144 and a larger move there. All right. So again, be patient this week. Last week was a slower week with some, intraday volatility. So again, we have data coming out, CPI, PPI Wednesday and Thursday. So keep it fairly light to start the week off. Then we can be a little bit more aggressive once that data comes out and we can size up a bit. All right. So that's it for today's video. If you do have any questions, please let me know. But I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow morning with the live stream and the live trading. All right. Take care.